Well, this is the second reading, and we are going to start today talking about Thomas Putnam. And I just want to review you for a second and to remind you a little bit about who he is and his motives. One of the things, and this is summarized in that section of the text that we're going to skip over, when you see paragraphs in the text, the author, Arthur Miller, is coming in to give you some more character background or historical context. So this information is about Thomas Putnam. Remember, he's still bitter that his brother-in-law was cheated out of becoming Reverend of Salem, and religious power equals political power. So Thomas was hoping to move up in society by riding on his brother-in-law's coattails, and when he didn't get the reverendship and it went to Reverend Paris, of course, this creates some tension between Thomas Putnam and Reverend Paris. The second thing is that he had a long-standing dispute with his neighbor Francis Nurse over property lines. Again, Thomas Putnam is trying whatever way he can to gain status, and that is either through power or property, and see, he has neither one, so this is why he has a lot of grievance with the people in the story, and therefore a lot of motive. So we're picking up at the very top of page 836. We're still in Act 1. And we start with Putnam.
Mr. Paris, I have taken your part in all contention here, and I would continue, but I cannot if you hold back in this. There are hurtful, vengeful spirits laying hands on these children.
Thomas, you cannot.
Anne, tell Mr. Paris what you have done.
Reverend Paris, I have laid 7 babies unbaptized in the earth. Believe me, sir, you never saw more hearty babies born, and yet each would wither in my arms the very night of their birth. I have spoke nothing, but my heart has clamored intimations. And now this year, my Ruth, my only, I see her turning strange. A secret child she has become this past year, and shrivels as if a sucking mouth were pulling on her life too. And so I thought to send her to your Tituba.
To Tituba? What may Tituba?
Tituba knows how to speak to the dead, Mr. Paris.
Goody Anne, it is a formidable sin to conjure up the dead.
I take it on my soul. For who else may surely tell us what persons murdered my babies?
Woman!
They were murdered, Mr. Paris. And mark this for a proof. Mark it. Last night, my Ruth was ever so close to their little spirits. I know it, sir. For how else is she struck dumb now? Except some power of darkness would stop her mouth, too. It's a marvelous sign, Mr. Paris.
Don't you understand it, sir? There is a murdering witch among us, bound to keep herself in the dark. Let your enemies make of it what they will. You cannot blink it more.
Then you were conjuring spirits last night.
Not I, sir. Tituba and Ruth.
Abigail. What proper payment for my charity. Now I am undone.
You are not undone. Let you take hold here. Wait for no one to charge you. Declare it yourself. You have discovered witchcraft.
In my house, Thomas, they will topple me with this. They will make of it a...
Your pardon, sir. I only thought to see how Betty is.
Why aren't you home? Who is with Ruth?
Her grandma come. I think she's improved a little. She gave a powerful sneeze before.
Oh, there's a sign of life.
I'd fear no more, Goody Putnam. It were a grand sneeze. Another like it will shake her wits together, I'm sure.
Will you leave me now, Thomas? I would pray a while alone.
Uncle, you prayed since midnight. Why do you not go down and speak with them?
No, I have no answer for that crowd. I will wait here till Mr. Hale arrives. If you will, Goody Anne.
Now look you, sir. Let you strike out against the devil, and the village will bless you for it. Come down. Speak to them. Pray with them. They are thirsting for your word, mister. Surely you will pray with them.
I will lead them in a psalm, but let you speak nothing of witchcraft yet. I will not discuss it. The cause is yet unknown. I have had enough contention since I came. I want no more.
Mercy, you go home to Ruth. Do you hear?
Aye, Mum.
Should she leap toward the window, you cry for me at once.
I will, Uncle.
There is a...
Okay, so I want to pause it here just so that we can figure out what's going on. Now, Mrs. Putnam very dramatically just said, I have had 7 babies murdered. That's a pretty wild accusation. What has happened is that Mrs. Putnam has been pregnant 8 times, and 7 of her children have died in childbirth or during childbirth or right after childbirth. And the only one to survive is Anne. And Anne, I'm sorry, not Anne, Ruth. And Ruth is probably about 10 or 12, around Betty's age. And there's probably a more logical explanation than murder, as in being witchcraft, being the culprit for these babies' deaths. There are all kinds of medical situations that we know of now that they did not necessarily know of back then. It could have been as simple as premature birth, or the cord getting wrapped around the neck, or some other situation in the womb that caused these babies to die in childbirth. So the thing is since these wild rumors of witchcraft are circulating, a lot of people are getting all of these heavy things that they have laying on their chest, and they're pointing to witchcraft as the scapegoat to kind of explain away. So again, Mrs. Putnam is drawing wild conclusions here, and making it sound like witchcraft is afoot, when really there was probably a medical explanation behind it. Okay, so at this point, the Putnams get Reverend Paris to go and address the crowd, and go outside and lead them in prayer, because this is what the town needs right now, because everybody's very panicked. When all the adults leave the room, here's who's left: Abigail, Mercy, and Betty, who is still unconscious in the bed. Okay. Abigail and Mercy are friends, and they're about the same age, around 17. Mercy is kind of a brutish character. She's, fat. She's kind of a bigger girl, kind of a bully, okay? And they're friends. They were all at the campfire that night, dancing and doing other things that we'll talk about later. All right, so let's see what happens when the parents leave the room.
It's a terrible power in her arms today.
How is Ruth sick? It's weirdish, I know not. She seems to walk like a dead one since last night. Betty? Betty? Now stop this, Betty. Sit up now. Have you tried beating her? I gave Ruth a good one and it waked her for a minute. Here, let me have her.
No, he'll be coming back up soon. Listen now. If they be questioning us, tell them we danced. I told him as much already.
Aye, and what more?
He knows Tituba conjured Ruth's sisters to come out of the grave.
And what more?
He saw you naked.
Oh, Jesus.
What do? The village is out. I just come from the farm. The whole country's talking witchcraft. They'll be calling us witches, Abby.
She means to tell. I know it.
Abby, we've got to tell. Witchery's a hanging error. A hanging like they done in Boston 2 years ago. We must tell the truth, Abby. You'll only be whipped for dancing and the other things.
We'll be whipped.
I never done it, Abby. I only looked.
Oh, you're a great one for looking, aren't you, Mary Warren? What a grand peeping courage you have.
Betty? Betty? Now, Betty, dear, wake up now. It's Abigail.
I'll beat you, Betty.
No. My, you seem improving. I talked to your papa, and I told him everything.
I want my mama.
What ails you, Betty? Your mama's dead and buried.
I'll fly. Let me fly to Mama.
I told him everything. He knows now. He knows everything.
No, you drank blood, Abby. You didn't tell him that.
Betty, you never say that again. You will never say that.
You did. You drank a charm to kill John Proctor's wife.
Shut it.
You drank a charm to kill Goody Proctor.
Shut it.
Ow!
All of you. We danced. And Tituba conjured Ruth Putnam's dead sisters, and that is all. And mark this. Let either of you breathe a word, or the edge of a word about the other things, and I will come to you in the black of some terrible night, and I will bring a pointy reckoning that will shudder you. And you know I can do it. I saw Indians smash my dear parents' heads on the pillow next to mine, and I've seen some reddish work done at night, and I can make you wish you'd never seen the sun go down. Now you, sit up. Stop this.
What's got her, Abby? She's going to die. It's a cinder conjurer.
Shut it, Mary Warren.
Enter John Proctor.
Okay,
On seeing him,
we're going to stop right here. So as you see, when the parents leave the room, the girls are trying to get their story straight. Mercy and Abigail, they are the ones who are not going to go down and pay for their misdeeds. They do not want to be punished. And remember, Puritan society, they believed in corporal punishment, which means whippings or some other physical punishment for their sins. So they knew they would have been whipped for dancing, and Mary Warren comes in, and she's kind of like, Mary Warren is the third wheel friend, okay? If Abigail and Mercy are the two powerful friends, Mary Warren is the third friend who's like the third wheel. She's shy, she's quiet, she doesn't make a big opinion for herself. She follows whatever they tell her to do. And so she's freaking out because she realizes that if they get caught up in this and people start talking about witchcraft, they could be hanged for these crimes. And then it comes out that Abigail drank a charm to kill Mrs. Proctor, John Proctor's wife. Now, what would be her motive for that? Well, we'll find out in just a second. So let me remind you, Tituba comes from Barbados. They have a voodoo-like religion, and so she made this charm, kind of like a love potion that would kill Goody Proctor, and we'll find out why in just a second. Okay.
Mary Warren leaps in fright. Proctor was a farmer in his middle 30s. He need not have been a partisan of any faction in the us, as well as to breed hypocrisy among us. Proctor, respected and even feared in Salem, has come to regard himself as a kind of fraud, but no hint of this has yet appeared on the surface, and as he enters from the crowded parlor below, it is a man in his prime we see, with a quiet confidence and an unexpressed hidden force. Mary Warren, his servants, can barely speak for embarrassment and fear.
I'm just going home, Mr. Proctor.
Be you foolish, Mary Warren? Be you deaf? I forbid you leave the house, did I not? How shall I pay you? I'm looking for you more often than my cows.
I only come to see the great doings in the world.
I'll show you a great doing on your arse one of these days. Now get you home. My wife is waiting with your work.
I'd best be off. I have my Ruth to watch. Good morning, Mr. Proctor.
So she flies, huh? Where be the wings?
Gad, I'd almost forgot how strong you are, John Proctor.
What's this mischief here?
Oh, she's just gone silly somehow.
The road past my house is a pilgrimage to Salem all morning. The town's mumbling witchcraft.
Oh, gosh. We were dancing in the woods last night.
Ah.
My uncle leapt in on us. She took fright, is all.
You're wicked yet, aren't you? You'll be clapped in the stocks before you're 20.
Give me a word, John. A soft word.
No, Abby. That's done with.
You come 5 miles to see a silly girl fly. I know you better.
I come to see what mischief your uncle's brewing now.
John.
Put it out of mind, Abby.
John, I'm waiting for you every night.
Abby, I never give you hope to wait for me.
Something better than hope, I think.
Put it out of mind, Abby. I'll not be coming for you more.
You're surely sporting with me.
You know me better.
I know how you clutched my back behind your house and sweated like a stallion whenever I came near. Or did I dream that? If she put me out, you cannot pretend it were you. I saw your face when she put me out, and you loved me then, and you do now.
Abby, that's a wild thing to say.
A wild thing may say wild things. I'm not so wild, I think. I've seen you since you put me out. I've seen you nights.
I've hardly left my farm this 7 months.
I have a sense for heat, John. And yours has drawn me to my window. And I've seen you looking up, burning in your loneliness. You tell me you've never looked up at my window.
I may have looked up.
And you must. You know, wintry man, I know you, John. I know you. I cannot sleep for dreaming. I cannot dream that I wake and walk about the house as though I find you coming through some door.
Child.
How do you call me child?
Abby, I may think of you softly from time to time, but I will cut off my hand before I'll ever reach for you again. Wipe it out of mind. We never touched Abby.
Aye, but we did.
Aye, but we did not.
Oh, I marvel how such a strong man may let such a sickly wife.
You'll speak nothing of Elizabeth.
She's blackening my name in the village. She's telling lies about me. She's a cold, sniveling woman, and you bend to her.
You look for a whipping.
I look for John Proctor, who took me from my sleep and put knowledge in my heart. I never knew what pretense Salem was. I never knew the lying lessons I was taught by all these Christian women and their covenanted men. And now you bid me tear the light out of my eyes. I will not. I cannot. You love me, John Proctor. And whatever sin it is, you love me yet.
Abby.
Oh, John, pity me. Pity me.
What's she doing? What's ailing you, girl? Stop that way. Stop that way.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it here. So at this point, if you notice, something very important happens. As the words "going up to Jesus" are heard in the psalm, Betty claps her ears and suddenly whines out loudly. So you hear her jump out of bed, and it says, she hurries to Betty, who is now sitting up and screaming. Proctor goes to Betty as Abigail is trying to pull her hands down, calling for Betty. What is she doing? The singing has stopped in the midst of this, and now Parrish rushes in. So she claps her hands over her ears and starts screaming. And my question to the class is, what is the reason for this? And there's two answers to be had here. One is that all of the grown-ups in the room think that Betty is freaking out because surely she's been bewitched, she's possessed by some demon, and just hearing the songs, the psalm coming up, she can't stand to hear the Lord's name, and it's driving her mad, right? But the real reason, think about it, the other two people in the room who totally forgot that she was there were Abigail and John Proctor, who just admitted to the fact that they were having an affair. And Abigail goes into some details about how they met in the middle of the night, right? So Betty is listening to all of this and pretending to be asleep. And so, of course, she's going to clap her hands over her ears and scream. Okay, it's too much for a 10-year-old girl to hear. And it makes her, that's another explanation to be had there. Okay, so as she's screaming, she's jumping up. Keep in mind, there's a window in the room. She runs to the window, and everybody, the congregation who is downstairs, they can hear her scream, and all the grown-ups run back upstairs to see what is going on.
What happened? What are you doing to her? Betty! Child!
She heard you sing, and suddenly she's up and screaming.
The psalm. She cannot bear to hear the Lord's name.
No, God forbid. Mercy, run to the doctor. Tell him what has happened here.
Aye, sir.
Mark it for a sign. Mark it.
That is a notorious sign of witchcraft afoot, goody nurse. A prodigious sign.
My mother told me that. When they cannot bear to hear the Lord's name.
Rebecca, go to her. We're lost. She suddenly cannot bear to hear the Lord's name.
Now, there is hard sickness here, Giles Corey, so please to keep the quiet.
I've not said a word. No one here can testify I've said a word. Is she going to fly again? I hear she flies.
Man, be quiet now.
Okay, we are going to skip this next part, which is pretty lengthy. If you can see in this PDF, you have a long explanation of the Nurse family. So the Nurse family is Rebecca and Francis Nurse. Francis is a man. They are older, and the thing you need to know about Francis Nurse is that he was a very well-respected man in society, and people always considered him to be very fair, honest, level-headed, and so anytime there was a dispute, they would go to Francis to settle the argument, and he kind of became the unofficial judge in town, and everybody respected his opinion. Therefore, everybody respected Rebecca's opinion. Another thing to know here is that Francis Nurse gained a lot of land throughout his life. He's older now, and He has just worked really hard, and he has built up a huge estate, 300 acres, in fact. And here's another thing. He lives next door to Thomas Putnam. And as we've said before, Thomas Putnam has grievances with everybody. And here's his grievance with the Nurse family. He feels like his property lines, he always wants to try to push his property lines just a little further in, because he's jealous of what Francis Nurse has built over his lifetime, right? And he wants to try to cheat this man out of his land a little bit. So that's another motive that Thomas Putnam has against Francis Nurse. And that'll become important later on in the story.